Hi, this is James from Tabletop Gaming Guild, and today we're going to take a look at Tiny Epic Dungeons. This is designed by Scott Alms and published by Gamelin Games. In Tiny Epic Dungeon, you're trying to go down and take out the boss without being overrun by goblins through this dungeon crawl style game. Let's go ahead down the table here. I'll give you a general idea how to play the game, and then we'll come back and I'll give you my final thoughts. Alright, so this is Tiny Epic Dungeon. Tiny Epic Dungeon, you're going to have these decks shuffled to start off with. You're going to have your Goblin deck. You're going to have your Magic deck shuffled up. You're going to have your Dungeon deck. You're going to look at the instructions on how to set this up. It's probably the only semi-difficult part of setup is the dungeon deck, and it's not really that hard. Basically what you're doing is like pandemic style, you're setting in different rooms, like rooms with minions and stuff that you have to search through and get to towards the bottom here, and then there's the final room is going to be one of the last four cards in this dungeon. Then you're going to have your minion deck shuffled up, put out, and you're going to have your item deck shuffled up and put out. You also put out your torch track, and the torch track you're going to have your 4 different goblins on there, and you're also going to place this torch for the player count. So if you look at this guy right here, if it's a 4-player game, it's up here, 3-player, 2-player, and then there you have to look at the rules for solo rules. And basically what you're going to do is you have to get to the boss before the torch track gets to here. That's one of the ways to lose. The other way to lose is if all 4 goblins are out. Once that happens, then you're going to flip the boss mat and go to Act 2. So I'll flip this on Act 2, put the torch on the upper portion on here, and I have to defeat the boss before it gets to there. So for Act 1, I'll put this on here, and I'll put each of the goblins on here. You will also place out the starting tile, and every adjacent room will get a face down dungeon tile. You will also pick your hero. In the base game here, it comes with a lot of different heroes to pick from. So once you pick your hero, we'll pick this dwarf here, and on the other side is going to be the key. So definitely after you pick your hero and you place them down, you're going to want to get one of the unused ones so you can have this key, because there's a lot of icons in this game to help you out. You'll put your heart icon at the highest level, and you'll put a surge lightning bolt in the highest level. Now on your card, they all have abilities, but the big things to look for is how many dice you're going to roll for each of the types of skill checks. And there's 3 different types of skill checks in the game: strength, agility, and mind. And then you also have your how many spaces you can move, and your defense, which is going to be at 4. So basically what defense means is you have to have hits equal to the defense, and anything greater will do wounds straight to the character. They also have abilities that they will have. This one has 3 different abilities, and here is your epic ability that's in the middle. And then you have default items that you have. You have a hammer and you have a shield bash, and you can use them throughout the game. If you get items for either of these hands, you'll actually cover over one of these and you can't use them anymore. So you'll set those in there, and then you'll get your really cool miniature. And these miniatures are awesome. I never thought a Tiny Epic game would ever have miniatures, and yet this one does, and these miniatures are great. I can't wait to paint these. I haven't painted them yet, but just the detail on these for basically a very well-priced game is amazing. And there's no droopy axes or anything like that. These are really nice miniatures, and they're going to look amazing painted. So you'll take the miniatures that are going to be played, and you'll put them in the middle here. This one's insane. There's a giant staff there, flowing robe. Really cool. You'll put your miniatures in there. And what you're going to do, finally, is you're going to randomly pick one of these bosses. You're not going to look at them, but these bosses are pretty darn cool. And you're just going to flip them over and place them out on the board. Now I'm just going to mention that you're going to fight the boss at the end to win, but the boss will all have their own little abilities that will trigger at different parts on the track, and their own health. This one has 8 health, and their own cool stuff. Now, when this is flipped over, based on your player count, you have to kill minions equal to however many hearts are on here. So 2 minions, 3 minions, 4 minions. Goblins are not minions. Minions are special people that you'll find later in the game. They get preset with this deck. So you'll flip this over, and you're trying to get these black hearts on it. One thing I'll mention that I will highly recommend is you can pick up an appendix that you can print out from Gameland Games website for free, and I'll put the link in the description of this video. And it's color and it's really nice, but I just have no color right now. And this will tell you exactly what everything does, and this is very, very helpful to make sure that you do your heroes correctly, the monsters correctly, and the minions correctly. And it does seem like a lot, but it's not. You're just going to basically take your hero, read the excerpt from there. You'll know exactly how your hero works, and you're good. Now, on your turn, you can move up to whatever your character says. So in this case, 3 spaces. When you move, so I'm going to move him here, you're going to flip your tile. So you're going to flip your tile, you're going to check a couple different things on here. If a minion spawns, like in this case a goblin will spawn, your movement will stop. You won't be able to do anything. The other thing that's going to stop your movement is if you do heroic action, and these are heroic actions. The thing on the left is what happens. The thing on the right is generally like an action that you can have. So then you're going to rotate this any way that you want, and after you've decided how you want to rotate it, then you're going to move your character in. In this case, we spawned a goblin, so you'll take a goblin from the top of the deck. And in this case, we got the Pokey Goblin. Now the Pokey Goblin will have an effect as soon as he comes out, which is going to be along the bottom here. And in this case, he's going to do 1 damage to each of the people in range for every goblin out. So there's just 1 goblin, so everyone's just going to take 1 damage. So you'll put him here on your dual track, and then you'll take this goblin and place him here. And everyone will take the damage. So I'll go down 1. Now, my movement has ended, but I can still do heroic actions and stuff. In this case, I'm going to go ahead and attack the goblin. When you attack a goblin, they will roll a counterattack die. And the numbers on here is how much damage they're going to do. And you're going to compare that to your shields. And you're going to look at your goblin to see if they have any bonuses or anything. But 1 hit will take out a goblin. That's not true for minions, but all goblins are 1 hit. And one of the ways, again, to lose the game is to have all 4 goblins out, and you'll lose the game. So you'll roll the counterattack die, and then you're going to roll your dice for an attack. So I roll these, and what I'm trying to do is do damage to the goblin. Now this is melee, so melee pays attention to the shield. So in this case, the shield's 6, so I need to get a number of 7. So with a number of 7, I'll do 1 damage to this guy, and he will go away. If you look at these things here, basically what they are is they're going to be a number, and sometimes they're a plus number, and sometimes they have the little lightnings on the bottom or hearts. So what happened here is I have a 4 plus 2, which is 6. I can only pick 1 die, so I'm going to pick the 4. Any plus dice can be added on, so I did, so that's a 6. And this dice wasn't used. Any unused die will be able to give me its bonus, in this case, a surge, which I will get immediately, which is important because sometimes you need to pay for stuff. So melee attacks, you're going to look at that shield, but if it's going to be a magic attack or such, you don't pay attention to that armor rating, only melee attacks. Now, I didn't make it. You can look on your character sheets to see if there's anything that you can do to help out. In this case, if I'm looking at my character here, I could do a shield bash to kill him, which costs 5 surge, which is all that I have on here. Or, because I already did my combat, I can pay 2 surge and I can flip a die. So I can flip the die here, what was his value? 6. I can flip this up to a 5, and now I'm doing 7, which is enough to kill him. So he will go away, and this card will go to discard pile. And that would end my turn. You're basically trying to race through this dungeon as fast as possible, flipping over tiles as fast as possible, because the other way that you can lose is not only just having 4 goblins out, having this go to the end of the track, or not aligning these tiles in a way that you're not able to explore the dungeon any further, and you didn't get to the boss. So those are 3 different ways you can lose. But the other thing that happens is you would think that this torch would move down on the end after everyone played around. No, it actually moves down for every player's turn. So this torch is ticking down. What could you possibly do? That's not that many turns. Well, as you're exploring through the dungeon, you will eventually pull a minion. When you pull a minion, you'll flip one of these guys out, and they have a ton of health. Like this one has 7 health. They have pretty good armor, they have really nasty attacks, and they can just kill you outright. What you're going to want to do is if you take out this guy, you're going to get that black heart that you really, really need to unlock for the big boss, because even if you get to the last tile, if you didn't kill enough minions, you can't unlock that last room. You will also gain a bonus, and if you look at here, if you kill a minion, you're going to move the torch back 6 spaces. You're going to either get an item or a magic twice, so you can get 2 items and 2 magics, or an item and a magic. And that's how you're going to buy yourself some time. And another thing I forgot to mention is each of these monsters have a bonus for defeating them. In this case, you're going to get an item and be able to flip a tile. So I defeated him, so I got an item I can pick from the item deck, which this case is a really cool crossbow. And let's say my guy doesn't want the crossbow. I can discard this, and there's abilities in the big game where other people can pick this up. So maybe the crossbow goes better for the elf or whatnot. But if I pick to use this, then I would actually cover over one of my bottom things. And I can only have 2 of these, but there's items and other stuff you can pick up. You can have 2 magic spells at any time, stuff like that. So you'll get that. Okay, so I also wanted to show you checks, because you're going to be doing a lot of checks in the game. And the trap ones are one of the ones that you can do checks for. So a check is going to have sometimes, like this one here is going to be your knowledge, and you have to have a 5 or greater. This is going to be any skill that you want, and a 6, and this is a trap. If you can't pass this test here, you're going to take the negative thing on the bottom. After you have determined whether you have to do this part or not, you can actually disarm the trap. And if you disarm the trap, you can put one of these little icons on here to show that that room's safe. And it's worth it if you think people are going to be traveling through it pretty often. Otherwise, I would just keep on going. But anyway, so this one you can pick one of your stats. If you're looking at the dwarf, you'd pick like a good one. So in this case, you would pick the strength. You would roll that many dice, so 3. And you're trying to be able to get that number. In this case, I just rolled a 6, but I have a +2. I won't use that. I'll use the 5 and the +2. And since I didn't use the 6, I will gain a health. So that's enough to pass that test. And then if I wanted to stop, or I could keep on going, I could do my heroic action. If I do the heroic action, it'll stop my movement. The heroic action, I will use knowledge, and I have to get a 5 or greater. And if I do, then I'll get an item or a spell. Now, he's not really the greatest to do that with. He only has 1 knowledge. So I would probably just keep going. But that in a nutshell is Tiny Epic Dungeons. Let's go ahead back up to the table here and I'll give you my final thoughts on the game. I really, really, really love Tiny Epic Dungeons. It is my favorite Tiny Epic game of all time at this point. I really love dungeon crawl games, and I think this one does it really, really well. You don't have to have that player that you're going to be playing against. Everyone can cooperatively play through the dungeon. It is also significantly difficult, so it's not going to be like an easy game to go through, which gives you a good challenge. And I really like how you have to make meaningful decisions throughout the entire game, and some things don't seem that important, but they are. Like, if you want to beat the room, you have to be very, very careful on how you place your tiles, so you can try to make that 7x7 grid so that you can get as many tiles down as possible. So it's extremely important how you rotate and place those tiles on the board, and you have to take into account, like, are you blocking things off? Are you not able to go 3 deep below the dungeon or above the dungeon or to the left or the right? You got to make sure that you have the best opportunity to be able to do that. I really also like the ton of different characters that it gives you in the game. Also, the miniatures are amazing. I like all the different monsters that you can run into in the dungeon that can help push that torch back. Minions. I like the goblins. The goblins are really neat, and they give an extra stress to the game. And one thing that I found, I don't know if it's the greatest strategy in the world, but it seems to work out pretty well, is you don't have to worry about the goblins as much. You can, in fact, if there's just one lonely goblin hanging around, I would ignore it. I would just keep on going. I wouldn't worry at all until there's 2 out, because they're getting close to possibly getting 2 more and then ending the game. So I always keep it, I'm fine with 1 hanging around. 2, I get a little worried and maybe take 1 out. But the focus needs to be on traversing through the dungeon and taking out those minions. And those minions are really, really cool. There's a ton of different ones in the game. They all have different really cool powers. Just a lot of replayability in this game because the dungeon is different every single time. Really highly recommend that if you like dungeon delving games and you like the Tiny Epic line, or even if you don't like the Tiny Epic line, this one here is a very meaty Tiny Epic game. I would highly recommend checking out Tiny Epic Dungeons. Thank you for watching.